Welcome to A Wild Mystery Podcast Appears. My name's Belle.
And I'm Ollie.
Today we are doing our first episode of our brand new podcast. This is a very new concept to both of us.
We're all very uncomfortable here.
We're all new. We're all uncomfortable. So we just, before we get started into any of our episodes, we want to kind of to give you a glimpse into who we are as people and to see if you'd maybe be interested in hanging around and listen to any of our new episodes that come out. So again, like I said, my name is Belle. My pronouns are she, her. I have always been really fascinated by conspiracies, myths, mythological monsters like, Bigfoot and the Loch Ness Monster. What?
Wendigo.
I
just totally did not say it
You're just
in an audible way.
Wendigo. And unsolved, just a lot of unsolved cases. I just think that the world is just full of really incredible and interesting mysteries, and I think it's time that there's kind of a different take on them.
Mm-hmm. Totally. Especially now that we've got all this different, especially when it comes to DNA testing and that kind of thing. There's so much new technology.
Oh, absolutely. And one thing that we kind of want to do is approach this podcast in a way,
a lighter way than you're probably used to if you're interested in this kind of shit.
Yeah. These cases are already inherently pretty dark or
rough,
pretty out there. So we just want to make it easier to consume. And, for people who might be not interested in the gory details, want to make it a lighter podcast. That way, those people who are still interested in the stories can listen without having to feel like they're having to force themselves to listen to it just to get the details.
Like you have to sacrifice your mental health for.
Yeah. Well, why don't you tell us about who you are?
I'm Ollie. Pronouns are she, her, but I don't fucking care what you call me. I am mostly interested in missing persons, unsolved murders, investigative techniques, and medical and historical mysteries, especially surrounding medical stuff. I'm studying to become a radiographer, which are the people that run like MRIs and shit. So, yeah, I've got a lot of interests, including medical stuff that I'll talk about at some point. Speaking of, there are definitely going to be dark episodes,
oh, absolutely,
that we can't make lighter.
Yeah, and our goal is to provide as many relatively encompassing tag warnings or episode warnings at the beginning of all of our episodes, because so that way you know what you're getting into.
And I think there are a lot of people out there who will say well, you're listening to something about murder or whatever, so you should already know, I don't need to provide trigger warnings. But it's also kind of not every murder case involves a child, or not every murder case involves rape or other triggering topics. So I think it's lazy, frankly, to just assume that you shouldn't include trigger warnings, and especially as a person who has had panic attacks, and I think you probably have too.
I have definitely had panic attack, anxiety attacks.
We feel you.
Yeah.
So.
And to lead into this, and I'm going to go ahead and just say that we're both the same age because your birthday is literally this month. So we're both 25. We're both actually,
I was born in Washington.
I was going to say, I was like,
Seattle,
I was like, you're not born here. I was like, but you were raised here.
I barely remember living in Seattle. So
yeah. And I was born and raised in Alaska. And I can't remember if I said this or not, but we're both 25. And we've actually been friends for 11 years now.
Wild.
So we actually met in freshman year of high school, and we've just, been friends ever since. And my Lord, have we been through the ringer together.
Yeah.
And we've really wanted to do something like this, honestly, for the past, I want to say 6 or 7 years. There was a brief stint where we actually did kind of start a YouTube channel.
But then we hated it immediately.
The videos do not exist. You will not find them anywhere.
Don't try.
And then we also discussed opening a business with you, me, and your younger sister.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm actually still pretty fond of that idea, but definitely not at the way that we're not at the age that we're at now.
No.
Because I really love the idea that we have, but I don't know if I could necessarily give
Pull
it
it
the
off.
attention that it wants.
Yeah.
Also, like, I work for the government, and I actually really like my job.
Yeah.
Um, and before anyone gets, like, crazy about that, I literally just work for, like, public health. I help the community. Um, so, like, I'm not like,
And
"I am the government."
there are tough points even in that, because I know you have told me about situations where you have not quite agreed with things and they are
Oh,
emotionally
absolutely.
difficult.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely. And I think every job has this kind of difficulties,
yeah,
but, um, I mean, I guess we can kinda also get into, um, obviously, you can see our tagline on our main page, but, discussing mysteries, histories, and conspiracies. Um, and one thing we do wanna, like, make clear, I think, from the beginning is if there's a topic that you want us to talk about,
yeah, hit us up.
send us a suggestion. We have about every form of social media that you can probably think of,
Except Facebook.
except for Facebook because
Who
we're
uses it?
25.
Yeah.
And,
We have a
we're
topic.
like, we're 25,
Yeah.
like, collectively, we're 25. No, we are each individually 25 years old.
We also
Um,
have a topic suggestion page on our website, which is awmpa.com, which you can submit anonymously, like not even add an email if you don't want to, or you can email us at a wild mystery podcast appears at gmail.com.
yeah.
When you type that out, just know I've typed it out so many more times and I regret it as much as anybody else.
Which, I mean, we might change later on, and I hate to change any tags like that, but honestly,
It's a long fucking
we
email.
might. We
Yeah.
might. I mean, honestly, but a lot of people don't really use email like that, and they're more
Yeah.
likely to use the website.
Yeah, that's fair.
So, I mean,
And I mean, you can contact us through the email. Like, we have made that as easy as possible. Additionally, speaking of contacting us, if you have suggestions, if you want to listen to all of our episodes, but you have a specific trigger warning that you want us to mention, like, tell us.
yeah, no,
Because,
if we
yeah,
miss one, like, let us know so that we
yeah,
can go back and, like,
add it into
re-tag
the,
it,
yeah,
because the biggest thing is, like, we don't wanna be insensitive to anybody, and I think I always tell people, I'm like, "I have an iron stomach." There are a few things that, like, get me more than others,
I
which I'm
have
not gonna say because
a
we aren't
weak as
providing.
fuck stomach, so
Which
hey.
is so funny because it's like, we both have our, like, health well, you're just now getting your healthcare background, but I've had a healthcare
Yeah.
background for the past 4 or 5 years
I
now? 5 years.
wanted to have a healthcare background for
Right.
a while. I
But
almost went into medical school, but then ironically decided my health couldn't deal with that, which in hindsight was a good decision. But
it when you look back, like, over the duration of the time that we've been friends, it's like we've gone through, like, so many different, like,
mhm,
phases and things, and just, like, to me, it's so interesting to, like, look back on the people that we were, like, in high school, and I'm like, I don't even recognize the people
I
that we
know.
are.
Yeah.
Like, I'm so okay, this kinda turned into a motivational podcast for, like, half a second here, but one thing I always tell people is I'm like, "It doesn't matter, like, how long it takes. If you're proud of the, like, person that you are now, then the journey was worth it."
Mhm.
And it's like, you might not like, even 10 years from now, you might look back and be like, "Oh my god, like, I was a bitch." You're still making progress,
Yeah.
and I think that's a
And
really beautiful thing.
even if you feel like for a second you're going backwards, everybody's going to have
Mm,
relapses, I guess.
yeah, I say everyone's gonna have days where it's just like, "Eh."
Days like today for me, where
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm so fucking exhausted.
Oh, and we're both in school right now, actually.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and
so
working full time.
yeah,
I'm up to full time.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I'm actually working a lot of overtime right now, but, overtime and I go to school, actually, I'm dropping down to halftime for school,
Oh
um,
sweet.
because mental health is important.
Yes, look after yourself. Treat yourself.
Treat yourself. I love that show. I'm sorry. It's the best, and anyone who says different, that and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I was talking with somebody the other day. This is not going in the episode. It might. I don't know. I kinda want them to get to know us. I Someone said that they don't like Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
One of my coworkers was saying he doesn't like the guy who plays the main character. The
Jake
guy who
Peralta?
plays Jake. Yeah, so
Really?
he like automatically doesn't like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which is
Excuse you.
wild, yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but like everything. Okay, first of all, Holt.
Mhm.
Holt. Also, I'm rewatching Hawaii Five-O right now, and it makes me so happy.
I don't think I've ever watched it. Every now and then
Our evening plans are sorted.
No, they aren't. You're going home and I'm
I
taking a
know.
shower and going to bed.
I know, and I have like literally 4 weeks of homework to finish in like 3 hours.
Like those pace yourself tests or classes, they're great, but also they suck.
Yeah, especially when you're a habitual procrastinator.
Which,
to be fair, I literally was just traveling all week for work and have been trying to get an entire region back on its feet.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go ahead and get us started into our first episode of our series.
It's kind of a shorter one, or we wouldn't have talked about ourselves for half of it.
Right. So today we are going to be discussing the case of Brianna Maitland.
The trigger warnings concerning this case are basically just brief mentions of sexual assault and car accidents. Nothing too heavy. I mean, that those are heavy topics, but nothing. It's not like a ton of trigger warnings this time.
Yeah, just a little bit.
And I don't think we're recording this after we actually recorded the episode. I don't think we got too much into either of them. So.
Yeah, it was a very incredibly brief mentions,
Mhm.
and honestly, I think the biggest trigger warning of it actually would be like disappearance and potentially kidnapping, because it's
Yeah.
like that's also very briefly mentioned.
Mhm.
But I don't think I'm hoping that this will be a
lighter episode.
A lighter episode to kind of ease you into who we are as a team and kind of how we plan to host these episodes. And I'm sure that our topics will evolve as we go on.
Mhm. We'll get better at this.
Yes, because this is...
We promise.
Well, we're going to try.
And also, quick mentions, because I already edited or started to edit one of my episodes. There could be some kind of annoying feedback in this episode, but I'm not totally certain. So if there is,
we apologize in advance.
We're trying to figure this out. We'll figure it out.
We don't exactly have a recording studio. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the DL is we're recording in a closet.
In a closet where I have pinned up a bunch of towels and blankets.
Yeah. So
we tried, okay?
We tried.
But there could be some feedback. We're sorry. It'll still be listenable. I promise.
Yeah. We're going to do what we can to make sure that you guys enjoy the experience that you have with us. And welcome to A Wild Mystery Podcast Appears. Let's get started. On Friday, March 19th in 2004, Brianna Maitland was a 17-year-old, very hardworking teenager based out of Montgomery, Vermont. She had actually just completed a test to get her GED, and to celebrate, her mother, Kelly, took her out to lunch, and then they went shopping.
17, that's pretty fucking good.
Right? Well, Kelly returned Brianna to her apartment that she shared with her roommate and friend Jillian so that she could get ready for her shift at the Black Lantern Inn.
This girl is like better put together than I am.
Right? So you might be wondering why a 17-year-old wasn't living at home with her parents.
I am.
So the year before, Brianna wanted to move out of the home that she lived in with her family, so she could be closer to her friends who went to a high school 15 miles away.
Okay, yeah.
Which realistically, you're driving 60 down the highway. Only 15 minutes.
Okay, yeah.
That's not that bad.
We live in Alaska.
But
we cut her some slack.
This is also in 2004.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, plans changed, and she actually ended up dropping out of high school. It wasn't rough for too long, as she quickly got back on her feet, and she was working 2 jobs.
This fucking girl.
And then she moved in with her friend.
She's like a fucking force of nature, like.
And she was already talking about going to college after she had got
17.
her GED. Can you believe that?
Yeah. Geez.
I'm like, I wasn't even thinking about. No, I wasn't thinking about college until I turned 18.
I didn't even know what I was actually going to school for until I was like 18.
I think I was like 20. I was like,
I'm going to college for something different. So like,
yeah. So, When she left her shift at the Black Lantern Inn, she left her friend Jillian a note saying that she would be back home after work. After working her shift, very normal shift, her coworkers invited Brown to dinner with them, but she decided to go home since she was tired and wanted to rest before her shift at her second job.
You know what she reminds me of is the Princess and the Frog,
Tiana?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The slumping in bed for 15 minutes before she has to get up and go to the next job.
Very much so. She got into her 1985 Oldsmobile alone and began her drive home. And unfortunately, with the rising sun on March 20th, numerous drivers reported a vehicle with its rear end stuck in the wall of a vacant building, which was called the Dutchburn Farmhouse, located about a mile from the Black Lantern Inn.
And this is an abandoned building.
Right, correct. Okay. So it was discovered to be Brianna's Oldsmobile. Surrounding the vehicle, police found some loose change, a water bottle, and an unlit cigarette. Inside the car were 2 of her uncashed paychecks and other personal items. So, not a robbery.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, if she was going to run, you might be about to mention this, if she was going to run away, she would take that shit.
Exactly. Which I wasn't going to mention, but
yeah,
she would absolutely take that.
Especially her paychecks.
Absolutely.
Uncashed?
Uncashed, yeah. So, state troopers on the scene seemed
she had 2 uncashed paychecks?
Well, 2 jobs.
2 jobs, right. Never mind.
Rent. State troopers on the scene seemed to think that the vehicle had been abandoned by a drunk driver and had a tow truck take it to the impound lot.
Jeez.
Then later, the state trooper attempted to contact the Black Lantern or later, once they identified that it was Brianna's vehicle, they went to contact the Black Lantern Inn, but at the time that they tried to contact them, they were closed.
This is so... I want to look... Sometime I have to look into, what do you do, at what point do you say, this looks really sketchy, and maybe there's evidence here that the forensics team should look at, so we're just going to leave this, I have seen this picture,
Okay, so yeah. So what I found...
This is real...
So for reference for all of you, please look up Brianna Maitland car on Google, whichever, and you're going to see a car with
I'm sure you're going to find this picture everywhere. I've seen it before, and I'm not even that familiar with this case. It's very easy to
find. But look at the surrounding. There's no tire track. There's no skid marks.
Okay, and also it doesn't look like it was ran. Okay, so this building, it looks pretty fragile. It's a wooden building.
Right.
It doesn't look that
There's
damaged.
No damage. It's almost like it was literally simply just reversed into the building.
Carefully.
Very carefully. There's no skid marks. There's no brake pattern.
You hear about ships coming into the dock and they just kiss the dock, they barely bump it, that looks like that's what happened.
Yeah, it does not make any sense. It looks
really weird. And
it looks also unreal.
For those of you who live in places where it snows, you know that when the snow starts to melt, the dirt under it gets super soft. So the fact that there are no
impression tracks,
there is nothing.
That is
zero. So weird.
There is zero.
And this is it's not paved, it's not gravel, it is grass.
It's a field.
It's clearly wet grass too.
It's a field. And so it's a very odd photo. It does not make sense when you're looking at it. And so, and also based on some eyewitness reports from the people who called in the vehicle, they all felt that it was very suspicious.
Mm-hmm.
And
they were just like, "Oh, tow it away."
Yeah, let's just tow it.
Yeah.
More than a few people indicated that they felt an instinctive chill upon seeing the photograph of her vehicle stuck in the farmhouse.
It is really weird.
It's logically, the placement does not make any sense.
It looks like it was just picked up and put there.
Yes, it does. And logically, and if you think it was a drunk driver car accident, the car did not roll, it did not flip. There is no visible damage to the sides of the vehicle.
That car looks like it was in park. You don't know how it was found, do you? Whether it was still in drive or in reverse,
they didn't provide any information on that.
Of course.
Which, again, and they didn't indicate whether the vehicle was on.
Okay, actually, you know what? Those little tiny details, I can see why police would hold those back to weed out false confessions and stuff.
Yeah, true. But even still, very odd. And later, Brianna's mother, Kelly, upon seeing the photo, said, "My stomach rolled. I started to shake. I saw evil in the picture." Kelly said she knows it wasn't her daughter who left her car like that. But here's the crazy thing. Brianna wasn't even reported missing until the following Tuesday.
Okay, wait. What day was the car found?
It was found on
Sunday.
Saturday.
Oh.
Did I accidentally
It says Sunday.
I must have typed it wrong. I apologize. Because, so on Friday...
So I'm assuming
she went to work on Friday.
So Kelly did not see this picture.
Until much later.
Okay.
Until much later. I kind of just kind of was like lumping...
Yeah. Do you know who took that picture?
It was, as far as I know, it was taken by police.
Okay.
There's not a lot of details about this case, and I almost feel like it's because it's a little more recent. This was
in 2004.
2004, so it's almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of really weird things about it, and there's just not a lot out there. And it just could be the resources that I went to, but there was just not a lot that I could find. Now, so yes, for clarification, she worked her last shift at the Black Lantern Inn on Friday. Her vehicle was discovered Saturday morning.
Okay.
And she wasn't reported missing until Tuesday. Now, on Friday, her roommate and friend, Jillian, saw her note, but had plans with her boyfriend and wasn't going to be home all weekend. After Jillian returned home on Monday, she found the note in the exact same place and then began to worry. Still, she assumed that maybe Brianna had spent the weekend with her parents and didn't call, but, which isn't unusual for a 17-year-old.
Was Brianna, well, especially, like, I imagine she probably missed her parents like crazy.
Oh, I'm sure.
Kelly seems like a really good, sorry, I'm just choking. Kelly seems like she was really close to her.
Yeah.
Do you know if she was scheduled to work over the weekend?
They did say that she wanted to get up early for her shift the next morning at her other job. Which was really interesting because I actually couldn't find the name of the other place that she worked at.
The other place also didn't raise the alarm when a 17-year-old didn't show up for her shift. So I imagine they don't want that press.
Correct. That would be my assumption as well. I just thought it was really odd, and I'm not 100% sure. I mean, it's not super abnormal for people like no call, no show, but like specifically for Brianna, she was 17 years old. She, you're subject to, child labor laws.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, they, there's a certain point where, hey, we tried to contact them, whatever.
Yeah.
But even still.
Well, I know, even when I was working at, unnamed grocery store chain that you can probably guess, one of the two that we have in America, they called me if I was even a little bit late. And they would call me when I was late when I had called to tell them that I was going to be late. So
yeah,
but with the shitty jobs that you can get,
yeah,
but that
you would almost think that would escalate it.
Because at unnamed grocery store that I almost just said the name of, I could, the person who called me and was like, "Hey, where the hell are you?" They were a different person than I talked to when I said I was going to be late.
Yeah, the communication chain is not always.
No, it's never there. In fact.
Yeah, and so she thought maybe Brianna had stayed with her parents. However, she didn't follow up with them until Tuesday.
Which, okay.
Long weekend, maybe. Still odd, but
I'm trying to think.
This is back in 2004.
If it was you, but then I have your mom's phone number, so I don't if Jillian maybe didn't know her parents that well, I can see going, okay, I'm just not very comfortable, but
yeah. But at 17 to be moving
yeah,
with a friend and a friend,
yeah.
like,
Do you know how old she was, Jillian?
they were right around the same age.
Okay. So 17, 18 probably.
Yeah. So after Jillian contacted Kelly and Bruce on Tuesday, at that point, her parents began contacting her daughter's friends, and it turns out that no one had seen her since her shift on Friday. Finally, they called the police and reported Brianna missing. By this point, Brianna has now been missing for almost a week. After Brianna's disappearance, her family and police received many false tips and claims. A call received claimed that Brianna was being held by 2 known drug dealers in a town nearby.
I'm assumed they were, well, you probably don't know this, if the dealers were, like, named.
They were, but I elected to,
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
you know what? They could have changed.
I mean,
They could have changed.
there's a case I've got coming up where there was like only circumstantial evidence for like all of these suspects. And
Yeah.
I chose not to name or really even talk about any of them because
Yeah,
it just doesn't
I
seem
believe
worth it.
yeah,
So
for me,
like,
it's like, brief mention, they were investigated, but they were never charged with a crime. Basically, the situation there is that the caller believed that she was being held captive with them, and I believe they conducted a raid on the house, and she wasn't there, and they couldn't find any evidence tying her to them. Another avenue was that one of Brianna's former friends and her between her and Brianna had resulted in a physical altercation.
oh
Um,
great.
this girl actually punched Brianna, and she actually got a broken nose and a
And a
concussion.
concussion. Holy
And a
shit.
concussion.
Broken nose and a concussion.
Yeah,
Jesus.
but again, investigated, nothing really turned up about it. There was also a theory that her disappearance was linked to Maura Murray's disappearance, which was 90 miles away.
Did it happen at about the same time?
It was a couple months. It was like within the same month's time frame. To clarify, not like within like 3 to 4 months.
And Maura Murray is the nursing student who like vanished from her dorm, right? Like she left her dorm. She got in a car accident the day before, and then
I believe so.
Okay.
Off the top of my head,
I think so.
when I wrote this case up, that was a little while ago.
So yes, Maura Murray is that student out of, oh my god, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Student out of New Hampshire who had a really sketchy disappearance.
Yeah, and the basically like some of the similarities basically ended
Yeah, but it's
at the
not
car
that
accident.
like,
It was basically
from
just
what
like
I
a car
remember,
accident.
like, but for more, well, no, I guess for Brianna too, because yeah, Maura, I remember. It's been a while since I've like heard anything about this case. But I remember Maura she left stuff that her family thought she would want in her car. I think she even left a cigarette in her car, actually, which is really weird.
That is odd.
And Maura was actually seen after she crashed, if I remember, like by a trucker who thought that it was really sketchy that she didn't want him to call the police. So he did anyway, which good on him. And I guess, it could have been the same kind of shit that happened to Brianna and just nobody happened to see that part, But
it's certainly a possibility.
But also for Maura, a big thing about this was that a lot of people think it was a runaway because she had a car crash. Well, okay, because she may have had a car. Well, no, she did have a car crash. It may have killed somebody. A couple of days beforehand.
And then additionally, a potential connection was made more recently between Brianna's disappearance and a prolific serial killer and serial rapist that was active at the time that Brianna disappeared. However, the FBI investigated this claim and ruled out the killer's involvement. He later took his life in prison in 2012. He will not be named because we do not give credit to
serial killers, yeah.
or serial rapists.
Yeah.
One important, or a couple other, important things to note just about this case in general is when her and her mother Kelly were actually out shopping earlier that day, Brianna had actually been a little bit distracted, and she actually left the store that they were in and went to talk to somebody, and her mother didn't get a good look at the person.
Okay, that was in person then, yeah.
Yeah, in person. So but her mother, when she went out to find her, she said that she looked really shaken up, but she wouldn't give her any details. It is kind of odd.
That's something else that actually weirdly connects it to Maura Murray, because I'm pretty
Really?
sure the day before she disappeared, she got a call at work,
Mhm.
and after it, she like burst into tears when one of her coworkers asked her what was wrong, and she
Really?
implied that her aunt had died. Her aunt had not died.
Interesting.
So that is a weird connection, if I'm remembering that correctly.
Yeah, it's certainly not anything to scoff at. And then another thing is, so it was believed that, or it was a possibility that Brianna had run away. Obviously, it was later determined that they always think it's a runaway, even when it's like, really, is that likely?
I mean, in this case especially, Brianna,
it's a very hard-working teen.
She had made a life away from her parents. Like, what would be the point of her running away at that point?
Exactly. She was already independent, and it's like, and despite, and I wouldn't even call it being estranged from her parents, because obviously they still had a relationship.
Yeah.
They obviously still had a very good relationship, but she was ready to move out, and talk about understanding parents to let her do that. However, 1 week after she was last seen, Vermont State Police returned to the scene to conduct a canine search. Finally.
Wait, how long?
A week.
Okay.
So, assuming this would be the Friday after.
I mean, listen, our canine troops, they're powerful. Are they that powerful? Because especially, like we said, in the photo, that snow is melting and there's a lot of water involved. Like,
yeah, it's not as likely that the trail would be as good.
And it's not as bad as like if her car was like in a running river or something.
Mm-hmm.
But still, a week later during breakup season,
Yeah,
which is going to be that's going to be jargon, isn't it? Breakup season.
Yeah.
Spring for you non-Alaskans out there. None of you.
No one at all. However, it did return an item of interest.
Oh.
On the ground near where her car was found. Now, based on the location of the item and not knowing how long it had been there, it was unclear if it was actually related to her disappearance. But they were able to obtain DNA from it.
Okay.
And it was entered into CODIS. And they directly compared it to 11 persons of interest. 11. So we can assume that this is, probably a couple of her coworkers.
Well, and I mean, also, if this was an abandoned farmhouse, it could have been like a party spot.
It could be.
Especially for like local teens.
Yeah. But no match was ever identified.
Fellow teens.
Now, one of the most recent updates on the case that we do have is in fall of 2020, the Vermont State Police, with the Major Crime Unit, they actually partnered with Othram, in the hopes of using the DNA evidence to build a DNA profile, so that they could, try and figure stuff out, and using genome sequencing. Which is always a really cool technique.
So that'll get I think from what I remember, it gets a better idea of like what the person might have looked like.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although with genetics, it is all kind of a crapshoot, like this percentage of being this.
Yeah. It is very hard.
You can't. It's not definitive.
Build something from that. Yeah.
It's just like things I should say that are definitive.
It's like a behavioral profile.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, or no, excuse me, sorry. After months of follow-up investigations, they were able to locate and interview and also obtained some DNA samples of potential donors. And they were sent to the forensic lab, and they confirmed that one individual's DNA did match. Now, it doesn't mean that they have identified a suspect, and they're still looking into the matter and just trying to figure out what had happened. But it looks also like another that a fellow podcaster, Paul Holes, and the murder squad was actually they fully funded the costs for the laboratory testing and the genealogical research for the case.
That's my fucking goal.
Right? So anyone with tips or other information that might be relevant to the investigation should contact Detective Baker at angela.baker@vermont.gov, or you can submit an anonymous tip online, and all of that information will be available in the description of today's episode. Sorry. Now, I mean, at the end of the day, no matter what, disappearances are so hard, and they're a very hard thing to deal with because there's so many unknowns. Yeah. But then in this case, you have very little information to go on. Yeah. She disappeared only 2 miles away from her work, and her car was just left abandoned. Very seemingly random. Does not make sense at all. And I did want to apply a correction. Maura actually disappeared a month before. Before Brianna.
I don't know why I had a gut feeling that it was that.
It's because you do this more than I do. Now, another thing is that in 2006, someone who resembled Brianna was spotted on security footage in Atlantic City, although that woman was never identified. So hopefully Brianna is still out there and is doing well, and hope that she is eventually able to get home to her family. Yeah. This has been the case of Brianna Malin, an unsolved disappearance of a 17-year-old in 2004 in Montgomery, Vermont. This has been a Wild Mystery Podcast Appears. I'm Belle.
And I'm Ollie. You can go to our website at awmpa.com to get all of our social media and find our episodes. I hope you found this episode interesting and enlightening, and we'll talk to you next Thursday. Stay safe.